Hey, it's Jay. Some months ago I was in a large box store that can eat dirt, and I came across an object on the back wall in the whatever section, a plastic figurine of Gordon Shumway, the star of ALF, with his trademark saxophone. The figure was produced in 2023, 20 years after the last ALF project aired. So I bought it because hey, remember ALF? He's back in plastic figurine form. And as I placed this plastic figurine, still in box, in a prominent place in my home, I realized I know more fake things about ALF than actual things. I have not seen a single episode of ALF. I have seen one episode of ALF, the animated series, because I watched the pilot once when I was very drunk, so I remember nothing about it. All I know of ALF is people talking about ALF. And one of those times was a podcast where the hosts were pulling an April Fool's prank and just making up an ALF movie on the spot. So I decided I should watch some ALF. And why not choose the least remembered part of the ALF Empire, the spin-off cartoon where the characters you know and love from the ALF animated series act out popular fairy tales and other public domain stories. Let's talk about ALF Tales, a C-tier cartoon that makes some interesting and terrifying decisions. ALF was created by Paul Fusco and Tom Patchett and aired on NBC from 1986 to 1990. The basic premise of the show is that Gordon Shumway, an alien from the planet Melmac, crash lands on the lawn of the Tanner family and then just lives with them now. He looks like this. He is a puppet, controlled and voiced by Paul Fusco, and the funniest thing about him is he's just some dude. He's a boisterous goofball who loves scoping out hot babes and eating cats. Cats are a delicacy on Melmac, you see. He loves chowing down on. So ALF was a big deal in the late 80s, so much that they greenlit 3 Saturday morning cartoon shows. ALF, the animated series, about Gordon Shumway's adventures before he crash landed on Earth, where we get to meet his entire family and see how wild and crazy things are on Melmac. Space Cats, about the evil cats that Melmacians find themselves at war with. And the subject of today, ALF Tales. Unfortunately, ALF soon found itself spread too thin, and the Saturday morning cartoons were soon all shut down, followed by ALF itself, unexpectedly canceled after season 4. Paul Fusco was determined to keep Gordon in the spotlight, and ALF kept making frequent appearances on TV through the 90s, including a TV movie, Project ALF, as well as an appearance on Love Boat: The Next Wave. By 2003, ALF Fever was back on, with his return to the guest spot on Hollywood Squares and eventually his own talk show, ALF's Hit Talk Show, which ran for 8 episodes. ALF Fever was short-lived, and ALF soon found himself appearing on The O'Reilly Factor and Young Sheldon as his movie continues to live in development hell. But ALF is still trucking, there's still ALF figurines being made, and he was in an episode of Impractical Jokers last year. You are not yet safe from ALF popping up somewhere. I just want to reiterate the concept of this show because I've intentionally put myself in an awkward position. The fairy tales and so forth are being presented to us by the cast of the show ALF, the animated series, with all their personalities coming through. Except I do not know their personalities, I don't even know most of their names. They're still cartoon characters from the 80s, so I picked up the gist, but it does mean I need to establish what I'm going to be calling all these characters. So our lead is typically Gordon Shumway, our titular ALF, you know him. There is also his family, which is almost universally cast as the family where appropriate. Dad, mom, bright little sister, bright little brother who seems to make his own props, not sure what the joke is here. There's also these 4 characters who are frequently cast as the villain, so you know who the bad guys are. 2 of them are tall, 2 of them are short. Then there are Gordon's 2 friends, Skip and Rick. Skip is the cool one, Rick is the dork with the stutter. And of course, Gordon's girlfriend Rhonda, who plays every single female part, but occasionally she'll have the hair she normally has, a giant pink mohawk, so that's fun. The rest of the cast is also made up of Melmacians, even when they're referencing specific celebrities, and man, the way they add the ALF features to these characters creates an assortment of nightmare creatures. The presentation also has the 80s all over it, as they decide to spice up the stories with reinterpretations to the modern times at the request of Roger, the man from the network, who for some reason is human. Maybe not. He's got a really weird face. So you just know things are going to get zany. Which brings us to the stories, which I'm going to break down from most boring to most bizarre, because while they definitely don't hit the mark very often, they definitely make each telling of these classic tales occasionally extremely out there. Let's get started with... This one is not, in fact, a retelling of the King Midas myth, because there is no story there. He is just a parable, just a greedy guy with an ironic curse. So instead they did a fairly bland retelling of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, because that movie had just come out. It's pretty dull, the jokes are boring and obvious, and is barely worth talking about, except for some reason they add the detail that King Midas got rich selling camel mufflers, so the camels don't make as much noise, I guess? I don't know, it's stupid. Another story that is just a parable, but this one has nudity, so maybe not the best choice for a cartoon for children?
This show may not have any fairies or witches, but it has nudity, so stick around.
The Emperor is a real clothes horse and is growing tired of the styles of his usual designers.
Yves St. Bernard, Ralph Polo, Norma Tamale.
Until Alf shows up and wants to show him his latest drip, which the king doesn't like because look at it. So he puts on a mask and becomes Guess Who, and does the whole fake fabric only the hip can see, and it goes about as you'd expect. Then, once the Emperor is humiliated and discovers that khakis and Hawaiian shirts are actually really comfy, he gives up all his previous clothes to the poor and then goes streaking with Alf. Normal way to end the story. You know this one. 3 brother pigs tried to build some houses, although 2 of them are not very serious about and use soup cans and popsicle sticks, and then the wolf shows up and knocks them down. Turns out the wolf wants the property because they were on an oil field, so the pigs become rich. I do like that the elves are just wearing pig hats the whole time. Elves already look like pigs. This was unnecessary, but funny. It's the damn archery contest again. Can't adapt Robin Hood without including an archery contest. Otherwise, how will the kids know you're a hack or not? The only noticeable difference is he's wearing a red Robin Hood outfit for some reason, and they're able to escape the trap by rocking out and getting all the guards to dance because they're hip cats, you see. Then Lionheart shows up and everything's fine. Hooray! They also pad the runtime with a lot of unfunny bits, including this extended telephone bit that somehow manages to convey the correct information in the end, and also just the Robin Hood Daffy Duck bit. It's a slog, really, and a poor showing for a first episode. This is a mostly standard Peter Pan story. Wendy and the kids get taken to Neverland and Tinkerbell tries to murder Wendy, and Wendy gets sick at the boys club and gets kidnapped by Hook. It is whatever. The ending, though. The ending involves Peter Pan going into business with Hook, who is a stand-up comedian because becoming an adult means working for a living. Also, the crocodile is Crocodile Dundee because it was the 80s. And Tinkerbell is this horrible dog because they only have a limited number of female characters and 2 were already taken and the rest are evil, so they were out of options. Kinda silly. Gordon Shumway doesn't want to do the Alice in Wonderland story and refuses to, but gets dragged into it anyway when the White Rabbit steals his girlfriend's necklace and he chases him into a bizarre fantasy world. This is where a lot of the horror creatures this show offers are. It's the usual Wonderland fare, but they're all ugly as hell. Look at this terrible caterpillar. Why is Wonderland full of tires? It's extremely stupid. I do like the Worcestershire cat. That's a funny joke. Tweedledum and Tweedleblonde is not funny though. This show is very fat-phobic, just a heads up. If there's a fat person on screen, you can be sure that person is evil and stupid and gross. It sucks. Is The Wizard of Oz a fairy tale? Are you allowed to do this? Well, they did, and according to the show, this really happened to Gordon Shumway. He's famous on Melmac from the time he was an extremely bizarre parody of The Wizard of Oz. Gordon is an encyclopedia salesman who lives in Kansas with his whole family, and then there was a tornado warning and they didn't take it seriously, so they all die, I guess. Except for Gordon, who falls out of the house and is now in Oz, where everything is just not quite right. The Ruby Slippers are Ruby High Tops, the Munchkins are hippies who live by the mellow brick road, the Wicked Witch is an awful lady who talks like this.
Quit stalling! Hand over those sneakers right now or I'll turn you into a chicken nugget!
And can turn people into bees. Alf gets out of there and runs into the other guys. They're just contractually here. They don't do anything. They aren't important. They just gotta have these 3 characters if you're doing a Wizard of Oz. The witch sends a bunch of flying biker cats to tear up the script, so they have to improv the rest of the episode, and this extremely weird reference happens.
What will we do?
Don't worry. There'll be a new credit card waiting for you at your hotel.
Alf uses the Ruby High Tops to Sonic the Hedgehog to the Emerald City, where they run into the wizard, who is, unfortunately, Bill Cosby. Sorry, not Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby if he was a Momakian and also smoked all the time. Is that a Cosby thing? Was Cosby always chomping down a big cigar? I don't like it. I don't like it at all. These dumbasses are tasked with killing the Wicked Witch, and they immediately get captured, but the Ruby High Tops give Alf magic powers, so he challenges the witch to a game of basketball. So she magics her cave into a basketball court and Chicken into a ball and just wipes the floor with Alf. Some real impressive hoop skills, but they accidentally throw Gatorade on her and she very slowly melts. And then Gordon asks to go home like this.
Here I am at the railroad station with a ticket for my destination. Whoa, whoa. Home. I'd love to be homeward bound.
And then suddenly he's in his apartment with his girlfriend and he asks for the newspaper and she uses magic to float it across the room. And then he says,
There's no place like Culligan's Island.
Over an in memoriam message for an associate producer of the show who died in a car crash. And then the show is over. The Culligan Island thing kind of made sense. They had frequent callbacks of this being Gordon's favorite show, and it looks like this. Listen, I'm just telling you what happened. It sounds extremely zany, but this one was written so poorly. Terrible episode of television. I'm sorry this clip exists, Vic Kephart. It's all a weird twist from here on out, as this simple little fairy tale turns into a union negotiation story between Donald Trump, it's an in-name reference only, so we don't have to talk about him, and the elves that he is basically imprisoned and treats very poorly. It's really stupid. Donald Trump is cartoonishly evil, and this bizarrely off-model Gordon Shumway is using all kinds of zany tactics to get him to work with the elves. In the end, his wife puts on a really comfortable pair of shoes and falls in love with Gordon, and takes over Tramp's company or something, so everyone starts chanting.
Gordon Shumway, Gordon Shumway, he solves problems, not in a dumb way.
It's extremely confusing, as the character playing the wife has spent the entire episode being extremely upset he has to play a woman character who Donald Trump is in love with and keeps calling dear. Maybe those really comfy shoes cracked her egg? Maybe just a bunch of bad jokes. This is Rapunzel. Everyone also raps in this one, and it's a reference to a very specific slice of rap music, goofy stuff that the writers of ALF Tales have heard about, if not understood. The land is under control of an evil witch who is using her monopoly of the airways to make everyone buy her shampoo, and kidnaps Rapunzel because she has really long, beautiful hair. The prince of the kingdom, who is Alf dressed like a flyboy, falls in love with her and performs a rap song to ask her to let down her hair.
Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair, that I may climb the golden stair. You're in the witch's power. She locked you in her tower, with shampoo in the shower, and all that hair.
And then the witch finds out and cuts off her hair and blinds the prince. All seems hopeless until Rapunzel cries and cures Alf's sight with her tears, a power her family has had for generations. Then they protest to the king, who is Ronald Reagan, and they form the FCC to destroy the witch's monopoly. We also get to see some Alf's kiss, which I do not like. Cinderella has the worst father in the world, who invites these three terrible women into his home, and they just abuse Cindy right in front of him, and just does absolutely nothing about it. It's actually pretty hard to watch. The local Elvis has decided to get married to a woman who comes to his show that night, so of course everyone wants to go, and Cinderella cannot because her stepsisters are needlessly cruel. She wishes that she had someone to help her, like a fairy godmother, and then she is visited by the fairy godfather. I think this is a great bit. Everything she wishes for shows up by some thug walking into the room and saying he found it by the highway and needs someone to take it off his hands. The rest of this is pretty boring. There's a terrible song. And then Cinderella explodes out of a piano and the happy couple goes dancing off into the sky. Gordon plays Sleeping Beauty in this, so he spends a significant amount of this episode either asleep or as a baby. He's been cursed by an evil fairy to get a paper cut and die. The good fairies, who dress like wizards and act like cops, bless him so he'll only slumber, and the king bans all books and keeps him isolated to prevent this tragedy. Unfortunately, Gordon is a moron, and gets delivered a newspaper by the witch's minion and falls to the curse. I kinda like she prepared a special newspaper for this. So Rhonda, who has fallen in love with Gordon, receives the Book of Truth from the good fairies and defeats the evil fairy with a really stupid fight.
Citizens of New Zealand are called Kiwis!
And then returns to the kingdom to give Gordon a smooch to wake him, but his alarm goes off and he wakes up naturally. Really dumb. Also, the evil fairy has a Hollywood square set in her lair for some reason, featuring Dracula and a big angry dog. This show, man. Hansel and Gretel are going door to door to sell bowling balls to get into college, and go deep into the woods to find a candy house, and the witch that lives there is excited about this, because the recipe calls for a plump Bavarian boy.
Plump Bavarian boy. Plump Bavarian boy.
Mooshu plump Bavarian boy. Mesquite grilled plump Bavarian boy.
Plump Bavarian boy.
They get kidnapped and run to Theodore and Simon of the Chipmunks and attempt to escape like they're frickin' Bugs Bunny, and when that fails, they have a workout montage so Hansel isn't so plump anymore. So Swole Alf defeats the witch, and this scene happens for no clear reason. And then they follow the trail of bowling balls back to town, and Alf invents bowling. Wait, what were the bowling balls for if bowling didn't exist yet? You know what? Let's move on. This is one of the show's legitimately fun episodes where they do the Aladdin tale in the style of the Bing Crosby and Bob Hope Road 2 movies. It's cool. You have Skip acting like he couldn't be bothered the whole time. The genie is played by Alf Johnny Carson. Nothing completely out of nowhere happens. Clear storytelling, clever wrap-up. I have nothing bad to say about it. Gordon plays a private detective in this, Sam Shovel, who is tasked with finding out the name of the weird little imp that this lady met while she was being held captive by the king, who looks like this, which I assume is a reference to something. It's more of a noir tale with a bunch of noir tropes, including a police officer who hates Sam Shovel, a former jazz singer with stage fright. Sam tries a bunch of comedy attempts to get the imp's name, and eventually nails him when he notices his vanity plate. It's dumb and weird. Then at the end, Gordon serves everyone turkey, which must surely be another noir reference, right? Otherwise, this show is just being extremely weird. Alf is a prince again, but this time he secretly wants to be a stand-up comedian, so he goes in disguise to the comedy club, where only one person laughs at his terrible jokes. They fall in love, but because he's a prince, they need to do a princess test, which involves a crowd gathering to watch her attempt to sleep on a huge pile of mattresses. This one has some alright jokes.
Can you keep a big secret?
Sure, what's your secret?
I'm not really a jester. I'm the prince of the land.
What?
And a joke I'm amazed I've not seen before.
Yeah, you had to stay awake. You see, there's this pee in your bed.
Ew.
So it's a bit more fun. Not sure where the stand-up comedy stuff came from. Seems like they just wanted to make fun of Sam Kinison. Gordy is playing Goldilocks, a guy who has really cool blonde dreadlocks, who is being harassed by the corrupt police department. Meanwhile, the Bear family needs to go on a fact-finding mission, so they hire a house sitter for the Stars to stay at their home and look after their dog. She gets an offer for a better job, so she calls Goldilocks to take over at the Bear's house, which was a really bad idea. He and his idiot friends turn the house into a skateboard and water park, and start charging people to visit, and absolutely destroy the home. The Bears come back and start singing about all their stuff had been moved around.
Someone's been eating our porridge sculpture, kumbaya.
And someone's been sitting in our chairs, kumbaya.
And someone's been doing who knows what with my beanbag chair, kumbaya!
Our house is trashed, kumbaya.
And someone has been flirting with their dog, but there's inexplicably $50,000 in the refrigerator, so everything's fine. We do get another nightmare creature when the Bears are showing off their cool stuff. Terrifying. This is the first documentary fairy tale, as we hear the real-life story of Snow White, a ski bunny who is the ire of the wicked Queen of the Slopes, who keeps asking the ski instructor Mario who is the hottest skier and decides to hire some guy to get rid of Snow White. He lets her go and she wanders the woods for a while. So the squirrels and bears and Melmac also have the weird nose ridge thing? She eventually finds a condo owned by 7 short ski bums and stays there in hiding, but the queen finds her and makes her fall asleep with poison hot cocoa, and so they set up a kissing booth, which seems pretty creepy. Then our documentary host enters the story and goes on the dating game to try his hand to bring her back to life, and it works. Gordon works for the Red Riding Hood delivery agency and is given a very important package to deliver to Granny with a very specific code phrase for confirmation. Granny has just invented a shrink ray, and the wolf breaks into her apartment, shrinks her down, and eats her whole. Gordon gets there and tries to make his delivery, but is also shrunken and eaten, and then we spend the rest of the episode inside the wolf's body. He's got an elevator in there. His stomach is a beach with babes. McDonald's has opened a franchise with several employees, and Gordon causes a food fight to get the wolf to throw them up and escape. The wolf calls the doctor about his stomach troubles, and the doctor falls in love with the wolf and drag while Granny and Gordon install the rebeginning ray, and everything works out, I guess. I feel like they didn't explain enough about the wolf character. Why does his insides work like that? Who runs this McDonald's franchise? They completely twist the setting of Sleepy Hollow here, so much so that it doesn't make that much sense, as Ichabod is moving to the big city to be a journalist and runs afoul of his boss and Brom Bones, some big shot at the office. They treat him like dirt, and then Katrina, Brom Bones' fiancée, seduces Ichabod and asks him over for sex. He decides to go because he is a horny moron, and is chased through the streets by the Headless Horseman because it's a Sleepy Hollow story. This goes on for a bit. He decides he's going to catch the horsemen and somehow catches 4 of them. His boss and Brom Bones both decide to dress up as a Headless Horseman to scare him. His friend Rick did it to support him, and the 4th one is just some guy. This town has a proud tradition of Headless Horseman cosplay. It is kind of funny. There's also a real one, just kind of there, so Ichabod gets the girl and flees back to the country. Hey, do you like Alfred Hitchcock references? Let me rephrase that. Are you, an 8-year-old watching ALF Tales at 8 a.m. Saturday morning in 1989, going to like a show with a bunch of Alfred Hitchcock references in it? Probably not. Probably going to be extremely confusing. But that's what we have here, the story of Jack Bates, who gets a bunch of magic beans that grow into a beanstalk that leads up to a giant's mansion, where he finds a why am I explaining what happens to Jack and the Beanstalk to you. It goes as you'd expect. Turns out the Golden Egg Chicken was a government plot of some kind, and they go out with Alf banging on a train, because why not introduce children to this subtle metaphor as early as possible? This particular story is such an outlandish twist that I don't think it counts as a metaphor anymore. So in this version of the John Henry story, John Henry is not a black railroad worker, but a Melmacian television chef who is famous for his skill in artistry and believes that humans are unique in their preparation of food. Because the writer forgot that Alf and all his co-stars are Melmacians. Lazy. He becomes the rival of this mad scientist who has invented a cooking machine that can make food faster and better, the K-Art Chopper. And John gets into an exhibition match against the machine and gets humiliated. The food robot replaces John at the governor's banquet, which is part of the mad scientist's plan, who has programmed all the K-Art Choppers to turn into evil robots so he can take over the world. John Henry fights the robot and defeats it, and then he is once again the chop chef, and his mom brings a fruitcake to celebrate, and the prospect of eating fruitcake terrifies this rustic and colorful yokel, who screams and flees the room. So that, according to Alf, is the message of John Henry. We shouldn't replace human labor with machines because those machines are created by evil people trying to take over the country. Wait. Despite everything I've said so far about ALF Tales and how off the wall a lot of its humor is, the most unhinged part of the show was probably the live action segment that they included at the end of the episode, a little mailbag segment with the Alf you know and love. Except it's not actually a mailbag segment, all the letters they receive are clearly fake, and Alf responds to each one with vile belligerence and biting sarcasm.
Dear Alf, I feel my best years are behind me. Sure, I'm doing fine in 3rd grade, but I always think back to my glory days in kindergarten. Dear A&A, stop whining!
I kinda love this bit where he starts reading a letter and then gets frustrated, just throws it away. It was just a very perplexing cap to the episode, and they eventually ran out of ideas. As after 7 letter segments, we get a final segment in which Gordon is on the phone with his agent, refusing to go on the Golden Girls. He starts to read a letter, and then gets a call on his second phone from his agent to clarify the role includes palling around with Gloria Estefan, so he wants to talk love scenes.
That's Alf's mailbag for this week. See you next time.
And then they never include another Alf's mailbag segment for the rest of the show. Just amazing. Incredibly half-assed. No notes. So that's ALF Tales. I gotta stop calling this segment conclusion because I don't know what more you could possibly want to hear about this show. Do I need to say more? ALF Tales is weird. It's a weird show. Tell me if you ever saw this, what you think about it, engagement, Patreon, like and subscribe. Spirit of Columbo, bye.